And we are live. Usually, hi, Lauren. Usually we don't start with our guest up on the screen with us, but we're doing it with Bethany because she was on time and all three of us were on time. And I decided to show up for this round.
We never start. We never start on time.
We don't. This is one of the first times we've started on time. We did this once, though, another time with a guest who started at the top with us, who had that incredible honor. I think it was Ethan, because it was his second time with us.
Ah.
I'll have to go back through the Tech Bro archives to double check that fact. But anyway, hi, Lauren. Hi, Bethany. Welcome.
Hello.
You are with us from London, right?
Indeed, yes.
Canadian living in London, if I have my facts straight.
That's right.
Yeah. So I'm in my usual spot here in LA, and I was just catching up this morning on all the labor news. I know that's not our topic, but we've got obviously the ongoing actors and writers strike, which has affected at least half of my neighbors who have now become de facto gig workers. Hospitality strike, where they're hospitality workers trying to get minimum $25 an hour, which you absolutely need to live anywhere near California. And then obviously the auto worker strike, which is more Detroit, but expanding across the country now. So in no way ties directly into what we're talking about today, but that's sort of the vibe that I'm coming
going on.
Wow. I'm on strike too. I've got my Montauk Summer Ale here.
Nice.
It just became noon, and it's Friday, so cracked this open. So I'm on strike as well.
Love it. The happy hour New York, happy hour.
I run my own business, and I'm on strike from it.
Yes, love it. So we're going to talk about BI, business intelligence, data, anything you guys want to talk about. But that's what we've promised our listeners. So let's dive in on, as you said, beer number 2, beer and BI. Lauren, what do you want to ask?
Beer and BI.
And maybe we should let her introduce herself. We're kind of assuming everyone knows her, but maybe not.
Yeah, Bethany,
sure.
lay it down. Who are you? Why are you on this show? What's going on in your world?
Cool. So I'm Bethany. I've been working in BI and analytics for basically since I graduated college. I was at Tableau for 9 years. I worked there in consulting and then also in product management. And most recently, I've joined Kawa Analytics. So we're building, it's essentially a no-code calculation engine with a spreadsheet interface that you can put automations on top of. So not quite BI, but analytics. It's kind of in the analytics space as well. And so I lead product for that. And yeah, really excited to be on the show.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Sort of.
And anyone in the comments, feel free. We keep it light, as many people know. We can pull people up later in the show as well. Ask any questions. Put Bethany in the hot seat. If you have any pressing BI data questions. But Bethany, what's going on in the world today with business intelligence and analytics? What's going on? Because there's a million vendors out there. Everyone's competing for the same mind share. People are differentiating certain ways, or they're just going very generalist. What's going on in this space? What's going on in the landscape and what can our viewers, how should they be thinking about all this?
So I think we're kind of, BI has always been a general purpose hammer for anything involving the aggregation and integration of data for decision making. And I think one of the things we're seeing is that it takes different user interfaces to do different jobs with data. And so it kind of failed when companies have tried to force a single solution across their whole company because people are doing different work. And that's how you end up with companies now that have, you go into any company and they have Power BI and they have Tableau and they have Looker. They have everything in large enterprises. And it's because it takes different tools for different people doing different jobs. And I think the major players in the BI space aren't sufficiently different from each other. There's sort of a gap. And that one of the gap that we see at Kawa is enabling operational frontline workers to manage and simplify and automate their processes with data. So I'll give an example of that. One of the things that I saw Tableau being used for was invoice prioritization. But it was never designed for that. It was designed for like macro trend analysis and like finding hidden insights in your data, not for like actually trying to execute on a job. And so that's a use case that we've like really optimized Kawa for. Or like if you want to come up with your like business logic to set discounts based on overstocked inventory. That's a use case that's very operational once again, and that's something that we're optimizing Kawa to tackle. So yeah, we're trying to separate like the macro KPI monitoring for like strategy from like the execution of like daily operations into different user interfaces that are specifically designed for those jobs. So yeah.
No, excellent. That's I can definitely relate to that. I mean, I've seen plenty of things where the accounting of a company is held together by Tableau dashboards, and then someone clicks export to CSV, and then it goes into there. So totally understand the operational workflow angle you're going for.
Yeah, that's funny, that use case. Like that's exactly what we see. Like we're working with this company that has a 50-step process to calculate the internal rate of return for the cash flows that they report to their customers. There's like 9 swim lanes in this process, and it's all because it's stitched together in Excel, and Excel is so ungoverned that you need like all these cross checks of different teams validating the work of other teams. And if you can remove Excel and insert a governed platform, you then remove a lot of the cross checking that needs to occur in the complexity that arises from having a spreadsheet stitching together such a critical process.
Is it oversimplifying to say that part of what Kawa is doing is leaning into the fact that everyone's going to keep working in spreadsheets till kingdom come, right? That rather than the other BI tools, like let's move everyone away from spreadsheets, just like lean into that. That's where people are comfortable, and make all of that easier and more operational.
Yeah, we take a lot of inspiration from the spreadsheet. We're not trying to reinvent the user experience. We're trying to pair the user experience of a spreadsheet with the governance of a database in a single platform.
Which seems so obvious, but everyone else is kind of, or most tools are trying to move off of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're working a lot with a broad customer base, but you do have a lot of like FinServe customers, like people in the financial services space. How is selling into all that going versus what you were doing earlier in your career, which was I guess selling in when you were in product and then in solutions engineering and such at Tableau? Like how is it different, I guess, selling into that customer base versus what you've done in the past, and like where are the opportunities? How does that kind of all work?
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess I'll tell you the origin of Kawa. So we actually, our founders were at BNP Paribas. Like our CEO was at BNP Paribas, Europe's largest bank, for 15 years, and he was leading a team of 600 people in the IT department there. And BNP Paribas was actually one of Tableau's largest customers. They had 60 consultants managing their Tableau dashboards just for the trading team, like a single department in the bank. And so he looked at this and was like, wow, that's super inefficient. It's very expensive for all these consultants, but more importantly, the traders can't do their jobs because they need to own their business logic. They need to be able to create the formulas to price their inventory based on their risks and positions. And they can't have to like go back to a consultant to try to explain to them how the business works every single time they need to make a change. And moreover, they found out that the Tableau dashboards were completely wrong because they'd mixed different currencies together. Like the consultants didn't understand the business well enough to know what data could be combined and what couldn't be combined. So he was like, okay, we need to get rid of this. It breaks my heart as like an ex-Tableau person, but they were like, we need to get rid of this Tableau stuff. We need to repurpose these consultants onto something else, and we need to put the power of data in the hands of the trading team. So they built an internal tool that was optimized for that, and it's a spreadsheet plus a database plus automations in one. And then looked around and at the product and said, hey, you know what? This isn't like a niche thing. This is a really general purpose product that's useful for a lot of companies. So then went around to a bunch of like hedge funds, showed it to them. They were like, yeah, we need this. We'll invest in you. So raised a pre-seed round, quit his job, and then rebuilt the product from scratch outside. So I think we're quite different to a lot of BI tools in that we originated in a very complex enterprise environment. And so one of the differences is most analytics companies have like started trying to solve a problem for a single user, whereas Cowa started trying to solve an organizational problem. So collaboration is like built into the DNA of our product. Like we need like quant developers that work in Python to be able to collaborate with traders that work in spreadsheets, because like that's the only way you can run a trading process. So I think we are more enterprise ready as a tiny startup that no one's heard of than some of the incumbents in the BI space that started as a single user product and just created so much love that they grew and grew and grew and kept growing on basically love alone.
So your initial customers are in the finance space, I assume, and
they're
you continue to target.
Sorry,
that's who you're sort of targeting. Is the finance?
Yeah, it's like in the finance space where we've got a lot of traction in like asset managers, hedge funds, banks, but we're also working with like retailers. We're working with ad tech companies. We're working with law firms. So it is, we are seeing a lot of traction in a broad range of industries, even though we started in the financial services industry.
Law firms, in my opinion, are the number one, and like I've looked into this and worked with some of this before, but law firms are the most underserved, like data operational like setup in there, and there are a number of reasons for it. And I'm speaking from like a New York, mid-sized to big law type firms, but like everyone's competitive there, like in the same way that like traders in the same firm like might be trading against each other. In some cases, like in the law space, like anyone who's trying to go out and make it rain, like you're competing with other firms, yes, but you're also competing internally with people. And so people talk about data silos. Like there's all these silos everywhere, all over these law firms, and definitely an undertapped market. So curious.
You mean it'll be interesting in terms of them not tapping into various data sources that could be benefiting them? What do you mean by that, Laura?
It's an information sharing problem. Like, you have a book of your own business and, you're a partner at a law firm, or you're anyone, sales facing who's going out and getting customers. And if you switch law firms, like, you want to take your book with you, the people you've worked with before. And you're also competing like with the same people in your firm for the big accounts. Like if you're at one of these big law firms anywhere around, you're going to compete with the same people who is 3 offices down from you in some cases, right? So there's huge silos in that space, and I'm very interested to dig into it more. Like I've thought about reorienting my own work there. Because it's such an opportunity, but we'll see how that plays out. So I'm curious how that's going to play out as you develop that as well, Bethany. That's super cool.
Yeah, actually, I have an interesting story about like how we got into the law firm. So this specific firm, I worked with them when I was at Tableau, and we were working like very closely with the BI team. And so the BI team was doing all of this, let's call it adjacent work. They're like measuring the performance of the business as opposed to actually trying to drive the performance of the business. So they're doing stuff like calculating like the utilization rates of lawyers, for example.
Sure.
And one day this partner showed up and he was like, hey, I have this problem. Can you solve it? We need to do this due diligence work for one of our clients who is a large bank. And it's a bit like The Big Short. So when a bank wants to resell its mortgages onto another bank, they have to do due diligence to figure out, is it good debt or is it bad debt? And like they price it then accordingly. So they get the law firm to do all the due diligence work, and it's essentially data work, because you have to run all these rules against the data to check, like, is the person who owns the title also listed on the mortgage, and that kind of thing. It's like glorified VLOOKUPs at scale. And they outsourced this work at the time to another law firm that could do it like cheaper. But then the quality wasn't good, their client was unhappy. And I was like, this sounds like 100,000 times more important than just like measuring utilization rates of lawyers. Let's go work on this.
That should be automated. Utilization rates should be very automated, by the way. And if people don't know what that means, like, right, like if you work at a services company like a law firm or a consulting firm, like you have a utilization rate of like, here's how many hours are, whether it's 2,000 hours a year you have to bill out to customers, or 2,500 or 1,800 hours you have to bill out a year. Like, how many are you billing out? And so the fact that this team's focused on that, which is something that like should be pretty automated, instead of things that move the needles, is quite interesting.
Yeah, well, so the thing is, like, we tried to. I tried like hell to get Tableau to do this due diligence stuff, and in the end we were like, this product is just like grossly mismatched from this work. So fast forward 5 years, and I joined Kawa, and I was like, oh, this is the product for this due diligence work. So I called up the law firm and was like, do you still have this problem, like 5 years later? And they're like, yes, it's very painful. And so it's very interesting now. Like, we're no longer engaged with BI teams. We're engaged with like teams that actually run the business, because we're helping manage processes through analytics as opposed to just report on the processes.
Yeah. I'm curious here with all this, because you're talking about what it sounds like, whether you're selling into, asset managers or services firms or law firms or anybody, like it's a back office versus front office battle, right? And like IT's back office, doing things that are, moving the needle forward and driving revenue, are front office. And how do you kind of balance that, like selling what is a technical product into the front office, or do you have to find someone in the back office to champion it and move it forward? Like, how does that all work with the with the strategy? And I like that you're smiling, because I love this
question. I love this question. So it's a really important question that we're going to need to answer when we scale, but we're in the point of like startup journey where we can do things that don't scale. And so fortunately we can like use our personal connections to get into the front office, and we're the technical champions for like how that solution will fit if we understand the use case well enough. Where it will become difficult is if we don't have like no upfront known use cases that we can sell into, then scaling becomes more difficult. So I think what we're trying to do now is create a series of like playbooks of like maybe 5 solutions that we do really, really well, that we develop through our network essentially. And then we can go and resell those in a more verticalized manner than just being this, like, we are a generic horizontal solution, but I think we're going to go to market with like 5 verticals.
Sure.
At the point of scaling. So yeah.
I'm going to bring in some of the comments here. We've got lots of people who showed up. Great comment from Brandon Leon Gumbadet from a little while back, saying there's nothing wrong with this spreadsheet. People just trip up when they think Excel is a database. Well said. Joe Nasso, I'm going to come back to your question in a minute because somebody else answered it. Brandon also said nightmare situation that Bethany described with those consultants. And
those pesky Tableau consultants.
Yes. So Joe's question was, do you think there's a role for near real time in the world of BI, or does this add some complication into what BI means? Val Goldine chimed in with an answer there, starting to answer it. Joe Nasso, he said, for operational settings where automated decisions are in place, real time works magic. But when a human looks at the stats, batch is better. So I don't know if either of you.
I agree with that. I totally agree with that.
Let's flesh out a bit when we're talking about moving away from Kawa, as much as we love to talk about Kawa. The only thing I don't like about Kawa, I'm sorry, is the name. It's not that easy to say. It doesn't roll off the tongue. Also a problem when I named my daughter Moira. I thought it rolled off the tongue. Moira doesn't roll off the tongue, and Kawa doesn't. We're not changing either name. We just have to get used to saying Kawa. What is it? It's like it means something, though. I have to remind.
We don't have an established enough brand that renaming the company is out of the question.
Yes.
I actually, so I think for native, this is what we've discovered is like for native English speakers, it's kind of a weird name.
Yeah.
But for non-native English speakers, they love it. And
okay,
I was the first native English speaker to join Kawa.
Okay.
And Kawa. I had the exact same reaction as you're having, Mary.
Okay. It does mean something, right? Isn't it? Like
it means like river in Japanais, but it doesn't really have anything to do with like the analytics.
Okay. Yeah. Got it. So anyway, moving away a bit from Kawa, just fleshing out more sort of as we promised people we do, what's going on in the world of BI, and our dashboard's dead, and what's going on. What are your sort of general thoughts there? Because sort of this notion of whether it's not just enterprise that you see, like that there's often 3 different BI solutions happening in various departments or even within departments, even in like medium-sized and sometimes startup companies, you see that it's chaos and it's ridiculous. And why is that happening? Maybe let's start there.
Interesting. Yeah, cool. So I think Qubit, where you work, is a great example of like one of the things that's happening in BI is like the specialization and like almost verticalization of certain use cases. So I don't think BI at all is dead. I don't think dashboards are dead. I think for the longest time, there was no alternative. And so people were like forced to use dashboards for product analytics, as an example. And then like Amplitude and Mixpanel and a few of these guys came along and were like, hey, this product analytics thing is actually different. Let's build something purpose-built for that use case.
Yeah.
And so like it removed some use cases from dashboards and moved it into product analytics. But like the core use cases the dashboards were designed for, which is like, being able to like monitor your business at a glance, it's still useful for that, even though some use cases have been carved out into product analytics. So I don't think dashboards are dead. I don't think BI is dead. I think BI has been overstepping its bounds in a way and like filling lots of gaps that other new categories are going to take over. So I think it'll shrink, but it's not dead.
There's a fragmentation, and just sort of a normal evolution of something that was the catch-all into the various niches. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
How are all these vendors competing right now? Like, I'll talk to, someone who's like a VP of data at a large company or a small one, or someone who's an individual contributor, like who's like 25 and they're young and they're just starting in their career more or less. And they'll like everyone will say like, well, we've got ThoughtSpot doing this. We might migrate that over to Tableau. Tableau is apparently dead because all the Tableau employees had an Irish wake for Tableau. Looker is owned by Google now. Do we have to re-platform to Google? If we move stuff over to Google from Snowflake, then we should use Looker. But Looker's actually just sitting on a Postgres database right now. And it's just this like naming, it's like naming the database or naming like the compute and storage, and then naming a BI tool. And everyone who does have these things where there's 3, 5, 7 BI tools is always like as a consultant and as someone who's considered an expert, a self-imposed title. But if you call yourself an expert, you become an expert, and then people want your opinions on things. Like I get questions a lot about like, oh, are we re-platforming here? How would this look like to re-platform this? And it's just a cycle. So like how should people actually think about re-platforming things and turning off ThoughtSpot and switching to Tableau or vice versa or whatever? How should
turning them all off, turning most of them off, we'll say.
Yeah, well, yeah, that could be a solution. But how should people think about that when it's time to move from A to B, or B to C, or consolidate, or keep it all as it is? Like, how should that VP of data think about that? What are some like rules?
It's a good question. So I'll tell you a story about like a head of data that I've been kind of engaged with, and I think that like he's doing it right in his approach. So he's just joined a new company, and instead of like starting with the tech and the architecture and all that, he's gone through the business and tried to prioritize like what are the most important data-driven processes that run today, and how do we optimize those? And so he's taking an approach of like enumerating processes, like, and then listing out like the cost of the process, like what's the risk of errors in the process, like trust is, where can we improve trust, and speed and all that. And then he's tackling the processes one by one. And I think that that's actually an approach that more heads of data should take, as opposed to
more
just
of an operational
like,
approach.
More of an operational approach, as opposed to like, like we have so many inbound data requests and we don't know how to prioritize them, so let's just roll out a self-service analytics platform. I think part of the reason all this replatforming is happening is because heads of data haven't actually tried to engage in the operational processes that the business is running, and so they view all data requests as equal. And vendors have been really successful at selling self-service as a solution to that. That's what all the vendors are selling, and I think that's just a stupid thing to sell.
Yeah, it's just passing. I think it's all passing the buck around, right? The whole thing's passing the buck around. Like, all right, like, what are the data engine? How do we get data out of our sources, store it, put it into a compute engine, whatever. Okay, we have data engineers do that, or the application engineers might be tasked with doing that. Then, all right, do we just dump it in here and then self-serve takes over? And now, like, we have a bunch of people working in the middle doing, like, a lot of times, like, all this crazy DBT stuff, which, it can be governed. It often isn't, in my experience, but it can be governed. And everyone's kind of just passing the buck to the next group of folks down the line. And, like, if you're having self-service and you have, like, a huge data modeling team and you have a bunch of data engineers, and if you trace the process, like, how many human beings are involved in it? Like, sometimes the answer is, like, in the dozens for, like, one pipeline of data. And I think that's all wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah, like, I think, like, if I were to join a company as head of data, the first thing I'd try to do is, like, run like hell from owning the remit of data. And I'd be like, what are the 3 processes that I own? And then I'm going to just work on optimizing those 3 processes. And I say this as someone who's sort of like a failed data practitioner. I had like a 10-month stint at a company. They're building like an ERP for hotel systems, or for hotels. And I was like their head of data for the product. And the original remit that they laid out was, you own all of data for like an ERP system, which is an insane thing to own. And a couple of months in, the CEO is knocking on my door and he's asking me like, what are we doing about ledger reporting? And I realized, like, you hired me to own like all of data and all of reporting, and like, what are we doing with AI? And like, you hired me to own a technical problem, but what you really want me to own is like the accounting business logic in how we report on 3 ledgers. And I was like, you should have never hired me. You should have hired an accountant. I'm leaving. But yeah, it was really enlightening for me in my brief stint as like not on the vendor side, but on the practitioner side, realizing that like you should be a domain expert in a process if you want to work in data, as opposed to just being this data generalist. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're kind of not advancing in like value delivery of data.
Sure. I think that's the main reason why this chief data officer role fails. That type of thing. Like, I don't know. I think we're going to see more and more. Maybe this is a spicy take, but CDOs have a high turnover rate. I know Harvard Business Review's put out some stuff on it, and so have some others. And it's it's always this thing like, why do 70% of machine learning projects fail? Why do 72? I'm just making numbers up here, but they're directionally close. Why do 72% of chief data officers turn over within 2 years? Why do blah, blah, blah? It's like, why are there all these high failure rates of things? And it's like, I wonder, like, maybe you're hiring the wrong people solve the wrong problems. Maybe some of the problems are, have to be domain specific.
It seems like what we're sort of fleshing out is that data people, and maybe to the point of especially data leaders, should be people who are coming from operations, not sort of pure data people, right? That could be the best training and learning that way to think. Which isn't a typical path.
You, as a data person, you become an expert in some operational process. Mm-hmm. It could be that you're an operations person that trains in data, or a data person that trains in operations. But I think bridging the gap between the two is critical. And the idea of like one person owns all of data for an enterprise is like crazy to me. Having done it.
Yeah. We had a good take on things here from Josue. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. He said he's a data engineer. He said his take would be, what's the ROI of decisions in light of 1, technical needs, 2, business needs, and then staffing, skill set, sort of culture, ability to change. I would inverse those first 2, business needs first and then technical needs, but that's sounds like you have some experience, Josue, which is more than we can say for a lot of people in data departments, right?
What is your it's Josue.
Josue, sorry.
Yeah. But what is your, Bethany, number one, like what's the biggest nonsense out there right now in the market? What's the biggest, maybe it's a buzzword, maybe it's a framework, like what's the biggest silliness going on right now in your opinion?
Oh, this is an interesting question. I think it's the fact that every vendor in the modern data stack is trying to create their own category, and so we're trying to say that there's 1,000 categories required to just run a data team. I think that's total nonsense.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
What's the funniest or the silliest category then in your that you've seen?
That's a good question. I don't want to like call out anybody.
It's a tech buzz. You can do what you want.
You don't have to.
It's all lighthearted.
So it's like I've seen this company where like the thing that they do is manage the lineage within DBT, but I'm like, but DBT's core value proposition is that they manage lineage, and so you're managing the lineage of the system that manages the lineage. That's just nonsense.
Oh, I agree. I think I know what you're talking about. Well, I think there's like a few of them out there now, but
there's a few of them out there. Like I'm like, you're building
a growing number. It's about sort of every aspect around DBT. There's a lot of
there's a lot of companies.
Their last tentacle of survival let me hang on to DBT, and it's fascinating. Yeah, and
it is fascinating.
More power to them if it works. But
well, the whole thing is like it's all this. We talked about passing the buck earlier, or I talked about it, of like, the next person in the line and the next person all the way to get the self-serve or whatever. And then it goes into an Excel sheet anyways, and you've gone through like 4 people. It's the same with a lot of stuff like out there. Like, all right, why does this, set of companies exist? Well, it's because I guess the product before DBT didn't build in more features. So because there's a feature gap, someone else stepped up and did it. Okay, why does DBT, or you can put in any company here. You can put in Alteryx in here. Why does Alteryx exist? Well, that's because Tableau put Tableau prep out, and a lot of people felt it wasn't, they needed a better solution. And so Alteryx caught a lot of that market share, and that's what allowed them to go public, right? And it's just all these like feature gaps. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm wondering how many of them are self-imposed or like purposeful in a lot of cases of, I don't know, like selling multiple solutions instead of one, withholding a roadmap, or I don't know, saying we're not going to focus on this and we'll let someone else do it. I don't know.
You mean that so that there's room for one of their buddies who's also invested in the same, you know, part of the same.
Why is reverse ETL? You know,
I see.
Whatever.
Time to get out the tinfoil hats.
I'd say, like, having worked on the product side, I generally think a lot of this is unintentional. I don't. Yeah, I think it's just like unintentional stupidity as opposed to like gaming the system in some way. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not as cynical.
I'm gonna broaden it a bit and put you both on the spot. So feel free to not answer. Are we heading into seeing more acquisitions soon, along the style of, you know, ThoughtSpot having acquired Mode? Any predictions there?
Yeah, I suspect DBT is going to acquire like the 100 companies that are building feature gaps for it. I think
all the tentacles,
that's probably all the tentacles. But like consolidation is inevitable because I think there's too many companies that aren't solving a substantial enough problem to be able to survive in like a market like this. So it might be.
I think that they're surviving at like 5 million ARR, maybe 10 million ARR, but like beyond that, I don't see any potential for growth.
There's no future for them. Yeah, and it might just be acqui-hires as well, because like some,
right.
You know, there's a lot of great talent working in these small companies, but they're just not solving a big enough problem to be worthy of a company.
And acqui-hire is such a PR move too. It kind of makes everybody look good, you know, put out a press release, and then end up firing half or more of the people anyway. But it looks.
But you get the best.
Acqui-hires never work, in my opinion, for like small companies. Like, I don't know, you've really got to want to be like the vice president of whatever, like after founding your own company, and then I don't know, you never got full traction on it or something. Like, I don't know, none of these ever work, and then people. You know, kind of stay for their, you know, handcuff period, and then they leave. You know, 2 years, golden handcuffs or whatever. But like, I think I mean, and I've been over this before, and like, I don't know. I think most of these things, you know, all these investors are going to get put underwater. They already are underwater, a lot of them, and. You know, whatever. I mean, it's one big marketing engine because you're just, you know, selling multiple solutions through the balance sheet of like DBT, or you're selling multiple things through the balance sheet of Snowflake, which, you know, recommends a number of other vendors. And so, I don't know, this whole partnerships thing, like from a few years ago, has kind of gotten... You know, it's kind of on crack right now, where like, I don't know, like these companies selling together that have the same backers, and you know, this one solves the feature that the other one didn't do. I think that you know, a lot of if you're looking at it from a technical perspective, people think, oh, this company will buy the other one because that makes sense. I think they have to run out of runway first. Like, I think they have another 6 months to a year before we even see that, because they have to burn through all their cash first. They, you know, and put out more blog posts or whatever. So I don't know. But we got something here from Nabil. It sounds that the BI landscape is both evolving and fragmented. Is it a sign of a growing market or a misalignment of offer and demand? A gap between ops and data?
Interesting. Is that for me or is that for you?
Oh, that's for you. Yeah. It's both. BI landscape is evolving and fragmented. Is it a sign of a growing market or a misalignment of offer?
I think both,
and demand?
Right?
Yeah, I think it is a sign of a growing market, because it's like, so DBT came along, I don't know, just pick on DBT again. They came along and created a new category essentially, and that gave a reason for all of these other companies to exist that are now their sole purpose is to fix a feature gap in DBT. So that to me is actually a sign of a growing market. Whether it's being addressed in the best possible way is another question. But yeah, when you see like a company that exists because of another company, like that is a sign of a growing market.
Yeah, right. What else? Like you've had some spicy takes on LinkedIn and other things. Like, what do you like fighting people on LinkedIn or where else? Because I fight people all the time. I mean,
I know you do.
People know who I am. I just
They
fight
do.
people. If someone's being stupid or whatever, or bothering, like, or just saying something that makes no sense, I'll start and not gonna go too crazy right off the bat, but I want to. Yeah, what do you mean here? How does this fit? And what do you like about engaging with folks? We'll call it.
I guess I don't like fighting per se. I like putting out kind of contrarian opinions sometimes, but it's not I don't get any joy from like I don't know, the fighting aspect of it, if you will. I also need to like probably rein in what I've said on LinkedIn before a little bit more as Kawa scales and becomes more official.
or maybe not. Maybe I don't. I like to think we're moving into a world where the honest. We won't even say the hot takes. Honest takes are appreciated.
Are valued. Yeah.
Just given that a lot of people just sound the same and sound very very corporate and
very corporate. I know.
But yeah, for people who don't follow Bethany on LinkedIn, she just I wouldn't. Yeah, you certainly don't pick fights. Neither do you, Lauren. You just state the facts. But you share honest and or maybe sort of original takes on the space and on the work you do. That, but to a degree that I think that this is much more frank and honest than a lot of people do. And you've kind of grown a following. I know unintentionally. Of people who appreciate that, right? Where have you been surprised by the reactions?
Thanks.
Yeah.
Not real like surprised. No, like I'm usually aware when I put something out if it's going to be kind of contrarian and get some people going like, Right. So there hasn't been anything where I've been like, wow, that was a shocking reaction. It's more my colleagues. They're sometimes like, you should probably delete that.
Right. Sure. There's a sense of caution. Yeah.
There's a sense of caution.
Yeah. And in the world at large, there's just like I find that like in any whether it's on LinkedIn or just like in day-to-day life, people are often still taken aback by like a woman who expresses a strong opinion on anything. It's not always appreciated, despite it being 2023. So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we've lost Lauren.
Yeah, Lauren's like, I'm out of here. No, that just happens sometimes.
Okay.
So yeah, here we go. We won't take your departure as a protest, Lauren.
No, it's I don't even know. They're doing work on my house. Maybe someone hit a power line or something. I don't know.
Yeah. What have you learned from? We could put this to Lauren too, Bethany or Lauren, from your like. So Bethany, you post your takes on LinkedIn. Lauren, it's more so on Twitter and on your blog. What I've never actually asked you this, Lauren. Like, what have you learned from these interactions? Maybe that's surprised you or disappointed you, like, Or is it just all a whole bunch of fun?
It's entertaining because most people have no idea what they're talking about and they talk way too big of a game. Like, I'm not going to go talk cybersecurity. Like, I know cybersecurity, but I'm not going to go like in the weeds and have opinions about stuff because I don't know it. Right. And the same like with this data stuff. And, now we see it with AI and everything. Everyone's an expert, but no one has actually gotten their hands dirty on a lot of stuff. And, what's disappointing, if we're going to say it that way, is how many people are just producing like very little at their jobs, but like have drank the Kool-Aid, and talk a big talk on whatever their thing is, and like whatever, like, and I think what's most surprising is how many people out there like who work at big companies, like see through most of the nonsense, and will positively engage with me and other things, and most of this silliness I think is around like the startup world. Like there's silliness everywhere, but like most of it's around the startups selling to other startups. I don't know. There's also like you mentioned The Big Short earlier. Like there's so much stuff out there. Like if you look at a lot of these like products out there, like they're still using like Segment's open source libraries. They're still using like Analytics.js, which is something that was built like in 2013 or 2012 or so. And they're still using that. And other things are still using like the Singer project and Singer Taps. And they're just building new companies off the same like open source stuff. And it's like, what is the value of this? Like, you're not building anything new. You're just, you're going to go burn $10 for every dollar that you actually make on this. And I don't know, like do your marketing, I guess. But like, when you're out here talking about like how other companies should work, like when there's no differentiation between what you do and what other, wrappers of things do, like whatever, like what's the point? And so like there's a lot of just nonsense out there. And I mean, I've called it all a grift before. Like some of the stuff that's just like the third or fourth ETL tool that it's really just the Singer project underneath it. Or, an event collector that is using the same Segment stuff and not building
These are the categories we need.
I don't know.
Put out your new list of categories.
It doesn't accomplish anything. I don't know. The other surprising thing here, and like, I invest in a lot of things. Like, I don't really invest in data too much because, like, you shouldn't invest in your own industry just as a hedge type of thing. But there's a few data companies I've invested in, and I know this whole VC game a bit, and I know a lot of the folks there. But like, one of the funniest things I've learned is just like when a lot of these people, when they want to invest in a company or thinking about investing in it, they'll go ask like the most junior people about like, hey, like what do you think about blah blah blah, and their due diligence will be like a bunch of like 24 25-year-olds who like have only worked at one job or have only used this thing, so they're going to say, oh yes, this is great, it makes my job amazing. And they'll go, all right, check, that sounds good to me. Like, let's put in $30 million because we asked, 5 people who are younger and more junior, and they don't understand the landscape. So I think that's like one of my funnier things is like, oh, we do all this due diligence, and there's all this due diligence that happens. But then if you look at it, like, it's a 28-year-old VC asking a bunch of 24-year-olds working who are using the product and don't have any frame of reference, and then they go, pump it up the line to the partners, and then they're like, oh yeah, like here's all we've heard about it, it's great, this is why it's great, here's what blah 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 said. And it's like, well, is that really due diligence? I don't know. That's my most surprising thing, but I'm just on a ramble here.
We love your ramble.
All good.
Yeah.
I'd say like what have I learned through these kind of interactions? It's better to be loved by a very small group of people than to just be like palatable to a wide audience. Mm-hmm. So I'll say like one of my posts that I was asked to delete because it was just like you're messing with the brand. That exact post generated one of the best leads that we have. So I'm like,
yeah.
They were like, I totally, like this person reached out to me and was like, I totally understand this. Like I completely relate. let's talk about how it can help our company. And I was like,
right.
Yes.
Yeah. People appreciate and will, and value truly strong opinions. Yeah. And it might put some people off, but the I just see it as kind of attracting smart people to oneself, which is ultimately what one wants in life, right?
And the same with all this follower game that people play. Like everyone does this, like you called it like being palatable to a lot of people. Like, I don't know, in my opinion, like making a post and like, making one of these wall posts about how SQL is SQL is the best way to do an analytics career or whatever. It's like, well, you're the 4,000th person that has put that out this week. I don't know. Or like people will just like do all those generic things. I don't know. You see this in a bunch of different things, a bunch of different spaces. And there's nothing said to it. It's like, okay, you got some new followers, but like, what does that mean? It doesn't translate into revenue. It doesn't translate into anything. Like, you're just saying the most generic, basic things. I don't know. It's very, very funny.
What I don't have a sense of, because I haven't worked in other sectors within tech, is, and this is more getting back to the, not the social media interactions, but the sort of the general maybe grift and, false creation of categories and stuff in the data spaces. My understanding is it's probably quite similar across every niche in tech, right? Like, let's say take cybersecurity, whatever. Or is there something particularly toxic and weird about, we'll say, the modern data stack? I truly don't know. I don't know if either of you have any insights, or if I know, Bethany, you came up from Tableau. Lauren, you're a bit more all over the place, but do either of you have any insights into that?
Yeah, I mean, in the last couple of weeks, people have been arguing about, TypeScript and JavaScript and like whether TypeScript is necessary. And in the same way, like, the whole JavaScript world has all this nonsense going on. 8 to 10 years ago, there were all these mobile this, mobile that. It's all the similar silliness. And then everyone becomes a thought leader on stuff. So, anytime this type of stuff happens, it's just, it's ripe for it. I think the data world is especially toxic because I feel like there's a very low barrier to like entry, and like, the low interest rates stuff of the last couple of years, everyone's like, oh, well, we need all this data stuff. We need all these data scientists. We need all these analytics engineers. And then someone goes, oh, if I can capture the mind share of these, new job title that's made, then I can be their leader, and then I can translate that into money somehow. And so then, it just circles. The same with all this boot camp crap, like all this boot camp stuff. And like the boot camp, like the data science boot camp, like to be a data scientist 10 years ago, you had to like at least have a master's degree and know statistics and know, I don't know, basic object-oriented programming, and, kind of know how databases worked maybe. And now, then there was like, the 16-week boot camp. Then there was the 13-week boot camp. Then there was the 8-week boot camp. Now you've just got influencers out here making their own boot camps. And like, there's one guy out here, he's got a whole boot camp crew, and he's like, hey, everybody, like, we're all going to use this GitHub repo. But then like, he signed up all these people for it, and I guess like nobody could use. I guess he didn't have enough. It capped out at 50 or something users, but he signed up more people. Then people got mad because they'd paid for the boot camp, and it's like, it's just silly to watch. Like it's all entertaining. It's pure entertainment. Like.
It's wild, yeah. As a boot camp grad, yeah, I think it's wild. I think it's.
I'll shut up in a second. But I talked to Joe Reese last week, and we were just talking about how everything's just becoming a meme. Like not like the whole thing is turned into a meme. Data with a capital D and an exclamation point after it.
And just when we thought it couldn't get worse, AI came along and.
Yeah, right. Now we'll go over here. Yeah. How are Bethany? How are you doing AI? How are you approaching AI, or are you just ignoring it right now, or seeing where
Right.
things fall?
Yeah. So we're using AI as a way to enhance the user experience of the product, but we're not assuming that AI is going to replace analytics, if that makes sense. It's like yeah. We're not putting a ton of effort in it right now, if I'm being honest.
like anyone who actually understands data, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we're kind of looking at like what are the super important problems that our customers want us to solve, and we're working on those. So we'll use AI when there's like a super important problem that's obvious. But yeah, at the moment, like it's not like the biggest priority we have.
Yeah. Spoken like someone who understands data. Yeah. Let's end it there. Any final thoughts from either one of you? We had lots of great comments that we didn't get to, so thanks for everybody watching. I think we had a record number of YouTube viewers. The number up in the corner of the screen is people watching on YouTube, which normally we don't get people over there too many, usually one or two. So
okay.
So hit show already. But any final closing thoughts, Lauren or Bethany?
Really enjoyed being on the show with you guys. So thanks so much for the invitation.
Come back anytime.
And where can people find you, and where can they learn more about you and interact with you or fight with you?
Or fight with me. Yeah, just send me a connection request on LinkedIn. I accept, like, I'm not one of those snobby people that denies connection requests. So just send me a connection request and we can chat that way. Or you can send me an email. It's bethany@cowa.ai.
Cool.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll have you back on anytime.
Cool.
All right.
Take care.
See you, bros. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.